be encouraged to go on and on is some of the learners which I together with my team, we made sure that they change, they see life in a different direction. And that will feel you, because some of them later on, they would tell you. And there's nothing about being a teacher. Wherever you go, somebody would say ma'am. Wherever corner you go, somebody would say ma'am. And you look at them and you will always be fulfilled. And some of them, when I found them working wherever they're working, I always tell them, I want you to be a manager. I never taught you to do this job is the starting point. I think you're going to be a manager later on.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think one thing that I've loved about education is just how for each and every one of us, like you're saying, we've had to pass through teachers, and teachers have been like our superheroes in a certain way, because with the dynamics of where we come from, some of us will come from families where we don't necessarily have the most encouraging parents or guardians, so your teachers become your hope, and teachers are the people that, like you were saying, you notice our strength, you notice our weaknesses, but you also notice the potential and you build it. So I think for me, that's something that stands out whenever I engage with people that have been teachers or they are teachers currently. So yeah, I really like that. So thank you for sharing on that. So maybe moving from what you loved, I want us to move maybe to what was challenging for you as a teacher, and what do you find that are the most crucial challenges that the South African education system is still facing today. So I want you to reflect on your experiences of the challenges you faced and also what the education system today is facing in this country.
The challenges that you would face as a teacher is when a parent is not coming on board is very much challenging. It is one thing that I would urge teachers and parents to come together, because these learners, they would hide because as long as the two of you are not on the same path, they would. But that is the main challenge. The other thing is, as teachers, we must also understand the parents, as well as parents must understand teachers. But this year, I think it was interesting, Serena, because with COVID, learners were at home. The parents had a feel of what does it mean to have these children. They are energetic. They want you. You can't be a teacher if you are not energetic. If you find a teacher not energetic, I'm telling you, even if at high school level, you won't manage. So that is one thing that I want to talk about, that if parents and teachers come together, then we'll be able to assist these children, because they don't know what the future holds for them. They think things come easier. It's one thing challenging. If you find that a parent comes to a school and scolds the teacher in front of the child, so such things are the things that are most challenging, because you find that the children at school respect their teachers a lot. They do. But if a parent comes to a school and do something different, then it becomes a challenge.
Sure, that's interesting. I like that you also speak a lot about how children need parents and the teachers to work together. Because from my experience of working in the literacy space, especially with small children, early childhood development, I found that when the parents are involved, it also boosts the children's confidence. The children are much more, they're excited, they're enthusiastic, because you know how children are. Children are the most amazing creatures ever. They're just always waiting to receive that positive energy. So I like that you're sharing around parents and teachers working together, because I think if you look at education, it requires us to be together. So thank you for highlighting that. But I want you to share with me your experiences of what do you think are the most challenging issues around education in South Africa right now, looking at 2020 also as a year that so many things happen. I want you to share with me a bit around that.
2020, as you say, it revealed what we already know in terms of when learners were not, when South African children in public schools were not able to go to school like other children in independent schools, they were able to take or to go on with their education because they have these technological things. But our children in public schools, it really, it was painful because it wouldn't be possible. Sometimes you find that the teachers, because of the love, the love of their work, they try to engage learners using WhatsApp and whatever. And I was asking myself, there are children somewhere who can't even access a phone with a WhatsApp. But the other thing is parents sometimes, I think they also don't prioritize education, because you find that you go to the same village or the same area wherein would say they can't afford many things, but you find that other things other than that they can help the children learn, they do afford. So our priorities also in terms of education, it needs to be up. Because you find that as the department and the government, they are trying to provide, and I know it's little, but the little that they're providing, if our focus is education, all of us, I think it might make a difference. It will definitely make a difference.
Yeah. So again, it goes back to what you were saying, that as people that are teaching the learners and also the parents, we all need to be working together collectively. Because I mean, if you can look at what happened with COVID, there was just so many things. And you were highlighting something that's also very important, that I think when you look on social media, everyone keeps saying that COVID highlighted the inequality that exists. And I think I always say education is the biggest indicator of that. So you are highlighting it very well. I wanted to find out from you now, maybe transitioning from you being an educator. Now you go from being an educator to a principal, to a second manager, and someone who's at a district. So I want to find out, throughout that experience, how has the transition been for you, or the transitional experience from being a teacher now to a principal, where you're starting to be a manager, now a second manager, and now also a district official? So how has that transition been for you as an individual?
Basically, the transition didn't have a challenge that much because it's the same space. I was also very lucky to be promoted within, so I already knew most of the corners. The principal was within, secretary was within. So it was really a good thing for me, because for the 6 years that I've been a principal, I felt that I need to move on. I felt that I think I've made a difference. Now it's time for me to move on. But luckily I was a second manager. And moving from a principal to being a second manager is the same job. It's just that the scope now is now a larger. But basically, those are the same things that I was dealing with when I was a teacher, when I was a principal. And even if when I was at the district level, it was just a greater scope, but those were the things that I knew. And basically, as a manager, I know where to touch and where not to touch. And I know how to manage people. That one I know that I'm good at, because all the people that I worked at, I know there are different kinds of people. When we're working, I embrace all of them. I take them all of them on board and make sure that we don't lose the focus, because the focus is one, is the learner in class, then it goes on. So when I was a principal, teachers, I would make sure that they do. When I was a second manager, the principals should do. When I was at the district, all the second managers also must do that. So it was a good transition, and it came at the right time to me. Then I was ready for any challenge anyway.
Sure. That's so interesting. I find that, my experience right now as we're talking, I'm realizing that managing people is tough. I mean, I have conversations with some of the people that I work with, but even like with my mother, we always have these conversations around how managing people requires a certain level of emotional intelligence, particularly because you know how we are as human beings. Sometimes I'm gonna come to work, something had happened at work, at home. Now I come to work, maybe I'm upset because of an incident at home. Now, I'm transitioning and I'm taking time to do my work, but you as a manager need me to be performing. So I really want you to elaborate further on you being a district officer, how did you manage people, and what was that process like for you, just being at the district? Because I mean, district from a school teacher, I can imagine it was quite different. So maybe if you can share a bit around that, particularly managing people.
What is key is you must know the people that you are working with, their strength and the weak points. Because if you don't know these people that you are working with, you may end up being personal, avoid being personal. Every time if I'm working, you find that I don't agree with whoever, or we are fighting for lack of better word. If you check, it's about work, nothing else. And when that is done, you go back, it's still a person. Remember, this person is a father or a mother or a parent. So it is, as a manager, you must make sure that you retain that. And the other thing is capacitate them. If you capacitate them, it will make them feel to belong and feel to be valued. Then many other things will just fall within the crest. So it's important to make sure that people are people, take them as they are, admit they are different, and tap on their strong points. In their weak points, downplay them, but make sure that their strong points, you strengthen them. They will feel to belong. Then we'll have lesser things to deal with. It's normal, you can't have people who, some of them will be troublesome, expect that, and be able to deal with them. The other thing that I like when I'm managing is, I would like people to feel to belong. That is very much important. Even if this troublesome one is a person, remember, tap into the person in him or her, then you know that you will be able to win because you focus, the focus of why are we here? It is what is very much important.
Sure. I think you really said a mouthful about, for me, what you've just said is a mouthful around leadership. And I'm very thankful that you've shared about us being people. Because I think that's the one thing that we also need to acknowledge. When we are humans, we are going to have our shortcomings and our own comings. I really like that. And also your emphasis on capacitating people, but also finding a way on managing people when there's different dynamics that are happening. So I really appreciate that, and I can see you speak from experience. I think also because I've personally encountered some of the things that have happened while we were working together, so I can attest to some of the things that you're saying right now. So thank you so much for sharing on that. I'm going to move on a bit now to talk about something that I really also love, and I know you also love it, and it's just the culture of reading and getting children to read. And I just want to find out, for you, where does it stem from the passion for reading and getting children to read? Where does it come from? From your side, I want to really get your perspective around that.
The passion for reading, it's just in me. Since I realized that there are books I usually liked reading. So even if reading for pleasure and also reading for qualifications, I have a number of certificates that I should do. Because when I read is when I feel good. Reading to me makes me feel good. And the moment I realized that even if other people can read, because sometimes I detect some people I wish they could read, because you find that people are sort of not composed, because it has many issues, but if they can be readers, to me, reading is also it's a kind of discipline in itself. It's a time when you become, you sit down yourself, you become yourself with yourself and the book that you'll be reading. And I think as people, we need that moment. But sometimes you find that there are other people who find them, you ask yourself whether they ever have their own space and reflect the way they treat other people, and also the way they treat themselves also, because sometimes it's so painful to find a person being an enemy to himself or herself. It's possible sometimes you realize that. Then reading, as far as I indicated, I liked reading a lot. Then when time came when I left the district, I had to check where can I place myself in terms of going forward, in terms of work. Then I went into library services because I know I love reading. And even my children, when they grew up, for Christmas present, I wouldn't buy anything if it is not a book. Until one day they had a meeting, they told me, Mama, I think this is enough. This is enough. I said, what? And I was so disappointed, but I understood later. But to me, I knew that if I buy them books, this is the treasure that even if they don't read them now, this is the treasure that one day they would remember that Mama bought me this book.
Yeah.
So let's read, because reading in itself, as I repeat, is a discipline to me. It's a discipline in itself. And it also molds your thinking, your writing, and you yourself as a person if you are a reader. And sometimes sometimes when I'm around people, you find that I would detect someone who is not a reader. Sometimes you detect. But when I talk about people who are reading, I'm not talking about people who talk bombastic words and whatever. No. For the love of reading, for the love of reading. So that is what I'm talking about in terms of when you read, you learn a lot, and you also be able to be composed as a person, because most of the things that you talk about would be the things that you learned in a book, then you apply them, it becomes so easy.
I like that. I like that your thoughts are exactly like mine
Really?
on reading. Yeah, definitely. Because I think I always share the experience that for me, reading I think there's something about how when you read, and when you can speak more about the things,
Yes.
And I think the biggest thing for me was that in the literacy space, I found that when you allow children to read, they also understand themselves. So the part where you spoke about reflection, having a moment of saying, what are my thoughts? What do I believe in? What do I see? What is my out view of the world? But the more you read is the more you have a dialogue, like a personal dialogue with yourself. Does it make sense? Does it not make sense? And sometimes you read something that agreed with something that you said, but then you read something that disagrees. So you also start having internal dialogues. So now when you sit with other people, you want to find out, do you have the same thoughts? Because I found that books are conversation starters, but also books make us become people that are aware of our society, of the inequality, of the poverty, all these different dynamics that we experience on a daily. So I share the same sentiments that you have. And it's funny that you used to buy your kids books. I think I'm that aunt now to my nephews and nieces. I buy books. That's what I do. I won't be buying anything. I just buy books because I believe reading is something that we need to be very intentional about, like you said, and also make sure that we contribute to the thinking of our children when they're still very young. I think that's important. So thank you so much for sharing on that. Just moving into that, I want you to share with me a bit about the work that you're doing as someone who's managing the media and library services at the provincial department. Maybe share with us what your typical work involves as someone that is working in that space of library services.
Yes, we plan for, as we support in schools, we plan for activities that must take place, because ourselves we're dealing with reading for leisure. Teachers in class, they are dealing with reading for examination and whatever, and how to read and whatever. But from our side, you are dealing with reading for leisure. It's so pleasing if you go somewhere or you enter a school, you find a learner under the trees taking a book and read. That is what we're promoting. That is what we're doing. We arrange summits for reading. We celebrate the international and the national days for reading. That is what we do. I also like this one in May, which it is called Get Caught Reading. That is what I like most. I think if I could still have energy, I want that one to be known and to be done, because when you are caught up reading, it means you are not policed, you are not looked after by anybody. It's just yourself. You take your book, you read in whatever position. That's why parents must know that if learners are used to reading in whatever position they find themselves, as long as they are not reading for a test, they are reading. So that is basically what we are doing. We're promoting reading. We support schools. We support teachers in terms of reading. We support schools to provide resources, although resources are not, the department that cannot be able to provide much resources. The little that we can do, we do that. And that is what we do.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing on that. I also want to find out, so from you being someone that is in the library services, what do you think is some support that you would like to see being given to the library services? And maybe this is just like also to the general public. How do you think people in general can support the directorate that you're in, which is library services, just as you reiterated?
Generally, they would support if they take part in terms of engaging learners in reading and also providing reading resources. If they provide reading resources, I think they would be supporting us. If every adult can engage learners in reading, when we grew up, parents were telling stories. That is what we're saying, adults out there. Let's make sure that we tell stories. And also business people, if they can avail books, maybe if they advertise their businesses, they also put books there. I think it will also assist in terms of every adult and every other people, especially youth. Nowadays, we're talking about unemployment. But what is it that we are doing ourselves as youth? And if we can definitely make sure that the knowledge that we have, there are many graduates out there. If you take the knowledge that you have, you make sure that you, in your community, you involve children in terms of reading activities. It will definitely work. So support as a department, business can provide. Those who are dealing with books, even if you are not dealing with books, you can provide, because we have other businesses which are providing in terms of revamping classes. They revamp a class, they find a class, windows crashed, the ceilings are not there, they start there and paint and put in, and they don't use much money because they use the staff at the business. They come and put a mat and they really make a difference. So it means businesses in communities, they can also do that. And even big business, they can also do that. Provision of newspapers, provision of magazines, that would also assist. Flood the schools with papers, magazines, books. That is what the community out there can support these reading campaigns.
Yeah, I like that. I like that you urge communities to be part, because I mean, I've always believed that it takes a village to raise a child, So even with the reading, we need to be deliberate as a village, as a community, in getting children to read. So I really like your sentiments on that. I want to move now to profiling you around you being recognized as an integrity icon. Congratulations on that, firstly. I remember seeing it when I think you put it out on social media. It was quite interesting for me. So I just want to find out, how has that impacted you as a person and your career, basically, as an individual on that regard?
Thank you, Rina. Actually, the being an icon for 2019, it really made me realize that sometimes you do things and people out there, they are looking and they're saying, wow, when they really say, because the motivation that they put in our just is the one that made me agree to say, these people actually, they do really know me, because these things that they're talking about really is about me. So why should I let them down? And it has impacted me because it has also boosted my morale in terms of doing what I like. Yeah. So career-wise, it has boosted my mood and my energy. And it also made me realize that I must also look at other icons and do the same, even if I cannot do it in accountability level way. But what is key is there are people out there, I'm not alone, there are many public servants who go all out and not seen by anybody, and they do what they're supposed to do. Especially for the good of the children, there is much that is being done out there. So it has assisted me to realize that at least there are people out there who are looking with an objective eye in what a person is doing.
Yeah, I like that. I think also integrity, also speaking around, in the times that we are living in, where every day we wake up to a story about corruption, we wake up to something happening. So it's for me, it's quite encouraging to see people like you getting an award for something around integrity. I think it's something that I want to find out from you, that as a public servant, why do you think it's so important, to have integrity? And how do you then incorporate integrity and accountability into the work that you're doing? Because after all, you are a public servant that has to provide a public service. So I want to find out from you, why is it important? How do you incorporate it to you as a person, but to you as a public servant?
As a person, when the space that I found myself in as a teacher, as a manager, and so on, it's about people and making a difference in people's lives.
Definitely.
And if you really, really serious about making a difference in other people's lives, you really have to be accountable, because you know that this belongs to, I mean, this time or whatever that is there is about these people, not about you. So accountability is very much important. It will make you wake up during the night and start planning, because you're thinking about the people who are at the receiving end. And working in integrity is when you're working even when there's nobody saying anything. When you work, you forget about the hours, you forget about the lunchtime. Therefore, it means it's about other people, not you. Then that is something that would keep you on your toes. So basically, I think integrity comes from within, although I think it can be integrated. Because sometimes when you ask that type of a question, it might be difficult to answer. But basically, it's about just doing the right thing at the right time, and also be selfless, so that you basically make sure that you make a difference in other people's lives.
Yeah. Sure, I like that. I think individuals, we do forget that whatever we're doing is beyond us, and I think that's what integrity requires from us. I liked when I was also reading on your profile when you got the award, that you believe that integrity is about doing the right things when no one else is looking, because a lot of the times we do things because everyone else is looking. So it's about what you do behind closed doors, which I find very interesting for me when you said that. And also just maybe marrying what you've just said now with, what do you think is the advice you would like to give to people that are aspiring teachers? So people that want to go into teaching, people that want to go into education industry. I would like to hear from you as someone who has had such a massive experience in the education sector. I would really like to hear your thoughts on what advice you can give to young aspiring teachers or people that just want to be in the education industry.
I would say, come and join us. It's so good to be a teacher, and you are never alone as a teacher. Because when you're a teacher, you see the fruits of what you have planted while you're still alive. It's so amazing, because you'd see the learners that pass through your hands. Some of them, by then, they were not able to tie their shoelaces. Now here they have these different types of professions. You see them, and you see them changing their families, changing other people's lives. And that's why I'm saying, those who want to be teachers, I would urge you to do that. Because when you are a teacher, even if you go to a community, a teacher is someone outstanding. If they say somebody must talk on behalf of the community, they will definitely call a teacher. So why not go into teaching? Because if we want to change South Africa, we must be there as teachers with integrity and accountability. Then we would definitely be able to do that. And aspiring teachers, come. If we have 5 Renai whom we know that they're aspiring teachers, I'm ready to mentor them, make them available. I will definitely do that, so that they also reap the fruits, because I'm really proud to be a teacher and to work as a public servant. Although working as a public servant, it has its ups and downs in terms of all the challenges that everybody else knows. But for you to survive, as I said, focus at the end point, start with the end in mind and focus. Then you'll be able to swim through those challenges. They will always be there in whatever sector. I think there are challenges, but you'll be able because you know why, the reason why you are a teacher. So I would urge young people, come and be teachers. But recently, and education is the most employer in South Africa. So if you want to be teachers, come is a very enjoyable moment.
Yeah.
Place to be in.
I like that. I like how, we're still finding people like you who are actively encouraging young people to come into teaching. I also like that you've said something that I think for everyone who is watching this webinar or anyone who's part of it, she's actually urged young aspiring teachers to contact her for mentoring. And I think that is such an important thing because a lot of us as young people, when we start off, we don't have mentors. So we don't have people that are guiding us that makes sense, that doesn't make sense. And I really want to applaud you that you are actually availing yourself to mentor young teachers, because I think that's the other thing. For us to have brilliant people like yourself or amazing teachers like yourself, we need guidance. We're not going to wake up and we are like you, unfortunately. But if we do have people like yourself who've had the experience and that they are mentoring us, it's better. It's much better. So I really am very thankful that you are making that comment. I want to just ask you the last question before I move to questions that are being asked by the participants that are joining in. And thank you for that. I will take them just now. So the last question that I want to ask you is around just the mental and emotional toll of being in the library services, particularly during a time like COVID. What has that been like for you? How have you also managed to remain sane? Because this pandemic has really made a lot of us feel like, yeah, we are not coping. So I just want you to share a bit around that.
If you take a book, Renai, and read, you'll definitely forget that there is COVID out there. That is how I'm coping. And that's why we urge people, when you read, you definitely come up fresh. Out of 2 pages or whatever, you'll come up fresh. Then that is how I manage in terms of my life, and even during COVID, and even the work that I'm doing is massive, I'm telling you, but I'm sailing through because I never believed in failing, and I never failed. Therefore, if you become positive and remember that challenges, when they come, is for you to stand up on them, because they will always definitely, they know that challenges will also be there. There's something, Renai, which I forgot to talk about when we're talking about teachers. Those who are aspiring to be teachers must come, because teachers now belong to unions. Unlike before, I'm a unionist, by the way. I've been a unionist as a principal. So the only thing is know the priorities, because being a unionist is not about not doing the good things, about the rights of the teachers. So that is that. So during COVID, we were reading the mental attitude, would forget there is COVID. It's only when you switch on the radio or you look at the social media, you realize, oh, by the way. So it's a place where one can hide with a wealth of information thereafter.
Yeah, definitely. I like that because I think you are sharing something that I believe in. Books have been the biggest coping mechanism for me. I think I love African literature. So whenever I read a book by Chimamanda or a book by Chunua Achebe, because I'm reading people's lives, I even forget what I'm dealing with. So that's been the biggest inspiration for me. So I like that because I think for us to cope with some of the emotional issues that we face, reading becomes such an important thing because, like you're saying earlier on, it helps us reflect on a lot of things that we deal with. So thank you for sharing on that. So I'm gonna get questions that our participants have actually asked us, or people that have joined in. Thank you so much for joining in and for the questions. So I'm gonna try to pronounce some of the names. Some are gonna be a bit difficult, but we have a question that's asking you, what is your biggest source of inspiration and how do you keep going despite challenges? It's from N Beta. So yes, Malatji, what is your biggest source of inspiration and how do you keep going despite challenges?
My biggest source of inspiration is being me, being myself. I repent more on myself, and that inspires me, because I also I put myself in a position wherein I know that finally I will get it. So I also be inspired by other people. I usually talk with other people of their experiences, and they would also inspire me. And because I'm a religious person, that is another source of inspiration that would give me the still tomorrow, no matter what. Then it inspires me. The second part was inspiration.
Easier. So the first one was around your source of inspiration and how do you keep going despite the challenges you face?
Okay, I think I've answered it. I keep going because I know that anything can be done, even if it cannot be today, but finally it will be done. And it's a source of learning. All challenges are a source of learning. And also after that, I also reflect, what did I learn from what I've stumbled or what came across me? What did I learn? Then it inspires me, whatever comes, I sit down and reflect and take it head on.
Yeah, so I like that. I like that you say that every challenge is a source of learning. That just it changes everything about how we face challenges. So thank you on that. So the second question that we have is also from N Beta around. Do you think the approach to adult education is totally different from child education? Did you get that one?
Yes, definitely. Because adults already have experiences. Children, they don't have experiences. Then when you teach adults, it's important to find out what is it that they know. Even children anyway, but the level will vary, obviously. So it's very much different. But with adults, it's important to understand them and know. Because already as adults, sometimes we find that everything is difficult. We want to learn, but in our back of our mind, we have this thing is difficult. So it's how different it is. I know, Renai, as you teach teachers sometimes, it might not be so easy for them to say this computer or whatever you're teaching them, they'll be able to do. It will take you time, but they will. But learners will definitely jump into it and try to do it, mess on it. But in the process, they are also learning.
Yeah, definitely. I think with what you're sharing is with learners or with children. I found that because they're still young and innocent and very authentic at heart, they are willing to try things out. You know, there's no fear of failure. And they're not scared to try. Whereas with older people, like you're saying, sometimes it's like, I'm scared of failing. It's the way also that society has conditioned us, especially with failure, you know, because I think a lot of us have been conditioned that failing is such a bad thing, and we don't talk about how failing is a teacher of a lot of things. So I like that part that you shared a bit around that. We have two questions from Jamela Homu. I'm going to give you the first question. It says that how do we reach learners at deep rural areas to read, looking at parents who are illiterate? She indicates that she visited schools and teachers are demoralized. How do we bring them on board?
How do we bring teachers on board? In terms of, okay. The attitude is something that always disadvantage us. Yes, it's rural areas, but it doesn't mean even if myself, I take books in a rural area, they won't be able to read. Therefore, parents, as immediately we say they are illiterate, yes, that is the truth, but the manner that we're saying it also contributes, because immediately we're saying they are illiterate because they're in a rural area, somehow you're closing. So it needs us to make sure that we win them. We make sure that they also have trust in life, because immediately we don't visit those teachers, we don't visit those areas, they, in a way, we are leaving them out. So we need to have an attitude which is welcoming, because that is the truth, but it doesn't deter us taking books into a rural area. It doesn't deter us to take these books, go and sit with those children under the trees in the rural area. That is South African children, which needs us. Because now we are able to go into a webinar. They may not be able to go there, but how do we take them that ultimately one day they find themselves there? It needs us to go into those rural areas. Teachers who are demoralized, yes, it does happen, but people, they need to, actually teachers, if they become demoralized, it becomes a challenge because that will be transferred into learners and is a challenge. So let's go there because we have realized them, Jamela. Make sure that you go to those areas. Make sure that you put life into them. Then that is how it can be able. And if you do that, you'll find that in return yourself you are so fulfilled ultimately.
Yeah. So her second question, thank you for that response. Maybe just going to your response and her second question. She's asking you around how do we then motivate teachers that are demoralized? How do we motivate them, particularly to also join in some of the initiatives around reading? That you find that, like earlier on when you and I were talking, you indicated that the general public or the communities, they can come and assist the schools with a lot of the reading campaigns that we run. But when we find that the community finds our teachers demoralized and demotivated, how then do we as a community assist to motivate the teachers? And also, as someone who worked with teachers directly and principals, how do you think we can motivate teachers in that regard?
If you are living in the same community, I think you can visit the school and see what actually demoralizes them. Usually some teachers, you may find that they're demoralized. They will say department this, department this. And if you find somebody blaming other people, you need to bring them back, because to me, the situation that you find yourself in, make sure that you make something out of it, because you are there today, tomorrow, and maybe 10 years to come. Then it means for the rest of your life, you'll be complaining. So such teachers need to be motivated. And the other type of motivation can be, if you go into those schools, if you have a gesture of showing that you are with them, in a way, they will definitely be motivated, because to say there's someone out there, or there are people out there, that they also realize that we are people. Because sometimes people are demoralized because they don't think people care about them. So show care, show that you really one of them. You'll realize how they would definitely change and be motivated. Because you go into those schools, you go into their class, you'll find that when they are with the learners, they even forget all those things that you see. Because with learners, you'll tap the energy there.
Definitely, I agree. I like that. I like that you because I always believe that when you work with people, changing people's behavior requires a lot. Like change management is a lot of work, and it's not done overnight. Like you're saying, it needs you to observe and reflect, and also engage. Because I find that sometimes as individuals, we want to impose change on people, but not necessarily involve them. So I like your approach of how we can motivate our teachers. And Beta has asked another question around, if you were not a teacher or a public servant, what do you think you would be doing? That's interesting.
I never thought of not being a teacher. I think even if I retire, I'll still be teaching, because in my spare time, I'm still teaching maths. It pains me because maths is the simplest subject as I teach. So in my spare time, I teach, and I never thought of doing anything else. But something that I may do, I may go into business, because there are many things that I can do. With the knowledge that I have, I could go into business. But in a way, there would be a corner where it talks about teaching. It will definitely do that, in the sense that even if I have a business, the people that I'm working with, I won't really sleep well if you find that even a cleaner I can't capacitate them. I'll definitely make sure that they are capacitated, because if people change, if people grow, that fills my heart.
Yeah, definitely. I like that. It's interesting because for someone who's not teaching learners directly, you are still making time to teach maths. And I also feel challenged as a young person that for a lot of us, we need to make time to teach the other people of something that we know. Particularly, I always challenge my friends that whatever we've done in high school and we did it well, or we enjoyed a subject that you did well and you enjoyed, I think we should challenge each other to teach in our communities, particularly in the rural areas where we come from. So thank you for challenging us on that. I'm gonna move over. There's a question that's asking you from Wendima Budusha. Do you believe that teaching is a calling? When did you realize you were called into teaching? Interesting questions,
The
eh?
issue of yeah, very interesting. Hey, a calling. Teaching, yes, it's just that this thing of saying a thing is a calling. Sometimes when it comes to teaching, sometimes you realize when you are a teacher, actually I was supposed to be here. Society and life in itself, it tells us about teaching being something else, being difficult, being underpaid, being this and this and that. But if you can come closer, if you can come closer, you'll realize that all of us actually, we are teachers, but in different ways. So yes, it's a calling. Some would want to be teachers from the onset. Some will find that they go into teaching, but they never thought, like myself, I never thought I would be a good teacher. And I'm telling you, I'm a very good maths teacher. Then in itself, it's something that I believe is all of us, we have it in ourselves. It's just that sometimes some people cannot cannot be with learners or children. Then it means then if you can't deal with children, then forget about being a teacher. And the other thing is teaching goes with dealing with whatever you do from the heart. It needs a person who does a thing from the heart. Then in a way is a calling in that way, Wendy. But I think you are a good teacher because your question in itself, if you are not yet a teacher and you want to go into teaching, I will also take you on board and you see, because even lecturers are teachers, isn't it? That is the other thing that sometimes people don't realize, that teaching, it depends at whatever level you want to be a teacher. Remember, I'm a teacher, but I've been I've been a principal, I've been a secretary, I've been at the district office. So it depends at what level you want to take yourself as a teacher. If you want to remain in class, it's still fine. If you want to go further, it's still fine. It depends on how do you take yourself in terms of teaching.
Yeah, thanks for that. I think for me, I'm a teacher at heart. I just have a lot of issues with how things are done. So yeah,
I know.
we've spoken about this in great length. I have two questions just before we wrap up because we are running out of time. So the first question is, how do you see the impact of technology innovation in the classroom and a new way of teaching? This is coming from M. Sitona. How do you see the impact of technology innovation in the classroom and a new way of teaching?
That one, the technology, we welcome it in class because we must move with trends. We cannot stay behind while things are moving. So the impact of technology, it needs us to take teachers on board so that they use technology in class. Because if we stay behind, whilst learners are so technologically inclined nowadays. So we need technology more than yesterday in class now. Learners must, it's just that learners, if every parent can buy a smartphone for every learner, will have other challenges. But that is the way to go, because technology in itself, it makes lives easier, it makes things easier. As of now, we are very far apart from each other. We can talk. What if it was a lesson? It would definitely happen. So technology is needed. It's just that as South Africa, especially in our public schools, we're not yet there. But I think one day we'll go there, because our children, they cannot, this coming generation, chalk and duster may not work for them.
Definitely.
So its impact is good, as long as we have people who can take it on board.
Yeah, I think the last, it was just a comment from Jamela saying that You know, she's experienced that the level of poverty that we have in society, learners do get demoralized for that. But she wants to thank you for your response, and she would really like to take you to some of the schools where she does some of her campaigns. So she really believes that you will change the narrative in the schools. So that was just a comment. So thank you everyone for the question. Yes, Jamel, I will make sure that because I know her personally, I'll give you her numbers so that you can talk to her. She does some really cool initiatives. So yeah, we can take it offline after this webinar. I just want to say that thank you everyone for joining into the session and the questions, particularly. I think as a host, I've really enjoyed this. Ma'am Malatji, you are an inspiration to me as a young person in this country. May you continue doing good work, and may you continue being recognized for the efforts that you do. So thank you so much for this conversation. I've learned so much. It was quite a great conversation. So thank you so much for making the time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Rina. Me and you, there's something that we must do. We haven't realized it because immediately I go away, you come back. I go away, you come back. Thank you very much. And we have some things in common. So there's a bomb that we must crack one day. Thank you very much. Thank you, Accountability Lab. It was nice being interviewed by you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The pleasure is all mine. Farai, over to you. Farai will be wrapping us up off. So thank you also to the Accountability Lab for allowing me to host this amazing session. Farai, over to you.
Thank you to the both of you for such a beautiful conversation. It was so nice to just sit and listen to you both talk. And I wish we could actually carry on forever for another hour. So I guess we'll have to do this some other time, you know, because I think you're both very passionate about education and literacy. And we just want to thank you for your efforts and for the work that you're putting in. So thank you so much. I loved particularly, Moshalagae, what you said about education and how, you know, the fruits are fruits that are visible within your lifetime. And I think that is so powerful, you know. And also, Renaya, you also just speaking about, you know, the power of having these intergenerational conversations, because I think that's what we've been trying to do with Meet the Icon, where we can tap into the wealth and the wisdom of our icons and also, you know, transfer this wisdom to people who are aspiring public servants. So I think you both did that in such a phenomenal way. So thank you once again. I'd just like to thank everyone for joining us. You know, we know that, you know, it's almost holiday time. People are going on leave tomorrow. So just thank you for taking time out of your evening to join us. Here at Accountability Lab, our offices are closing tomorrow, and then we're back next year on the 4th of January. So we're looking forward to taking a break and then coming back with a bang next year. So please, you know, keep tuned to our social media to see what exciting projects and programs and events we're going to be having next year. But I think from us, you know, this is it for Meet the Icon. And thank you so much for joining us on this journey. And look forward to doing this again next year.
Thank you, Farai.